Namaste, my name is Shailaja. In today's video, I'll be talking about the ancient mystical symbol, the Ouroboros, and based on my own experience on it. Next, I'll be discussing about the Trigunas and how they affect us at the universal level, at the psychological level, how these gunas affect us during our Kundalini Awakening process, and how these gunas influence whether we get tied up with in the karmic baggage or whether we release ourselves from the cycles of life and death by releasing ourselves from accumulating more karma. Now, when somebody is undergoing a spiritual awakening or a Kundalini awakening process, the pranic force in the body starts flowing upwards. While this is flowing upwards, and when this pranic force it crosses the Agya chakra and moves up, it enters the Vijnanamaya kosha or the intellectual sheath. Once the pranic force enters the intellectual sheath, we gain access to universal mystical symbols. Now, these universal mystical symbols are part of the collective unconscious mind. So, no matter where a person resides in this world, no matter what religion or what culture or what time frame he belongs to, everybody, irrespective of these, they see these mystical symbols. The universe uses these mystical symbols to communicate with us, to send us messages, to guide and direct us on a spiritual path. So, one such mystical symbol is the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros, that is the snake eating its own tail. This is a very ancient mystical symbol, and this was used widely around 5 to 6000 BC. Ancient Egyptians used this on their tombs, and they considered this mystical symbol to have carry a certain divine energy. And this represented the beginning and end of time and even the renewal of time. The ancient Romans considered this symbol as magical, and it was part of their alchemy, and they used the symbol on talisman. And the Chinese, they too used this symbol, but it was in form of a dragon. In Gnosticism, this symbol was considered sacred, and it meant that the dragon surrounded the world with its tail in its mouth. In South America, too, indigenous people used the symbol, and where it was depicted as a yellow python. The yogis in various cultures, that is, the wise men and the wise women who were there in various cultures, who had access to such mystical symbols, they understood the value of these symbols, and they had found ways to preserve these symbols in the culture and to pass it on from generation to generation so that they become part of their cultural memory. Now, coming to my own experience with this particular mystical symbol, now when you're in the Kundalini Awakening process, you can either see these mystical symbols while you're in a state of meditation or as visions or as part of dreams. My first experience with Ouroboros symbol was in a dream state where I was lying on a table and I saw a yellow python with its tail near my left ear. It encircled me all around, and then it caught the tail with its mouth. When I first saw this symbol, it made no sense to me because I had no idea that the symbol was an ancient mystical symbol. I tried discussing with few people, and I got to understand that this dream of mine represented a particular phase in my Kundalini awakening process or a completion of a cycle in the Kundalini awakening process, or it had to do something with time, the renewal, and other similar meanings. When I heard these different interpretations, I was not satisfied. I had this feeling that this particular mystical symbol had a much deeper meaning. Generally, what happens is initially a person in a Kundalini awakening process sees various mystical symbols. But at that point in time, the person's vibrational level is not high enough to understand the meaning of these symbols. For somebody to understand the meaning of these symbols, they have to ascend further in their spiritual journey. So I saw this symbol about 4 or 5 years ago, but I only understood the meaning of the symbol about 3 4 months ago. This is how I understood the symbol. I spoke about Parabindu, the point from which the entire creation emanates. So in the Parabindu, you will see the Shivalinga in the center and the snake. That is, the snake represents the kinetic, feminine, creative energy of the universe, the Shakti. So when the Shakti comes out of the Bindu, as I spoke about this earlier, she is coiled in nature. Kundalini itself means the coiled one. So when she is moving out of the Bindu or the point of creation, she first moves and then, because of a coiled nature, she takes a turn. And again, while moving further, she takes one more turn. And then when she reaches the starting point, she it's like the snake holding its tail. So the snake holds its tail so that she stays in that particular position. So the Ouroboros which I saw in my dream was actually Maha Kundalini. The Ouroboros has a very deep meaning where it represents the very start of the creation. Here I have put the Ouroboros on the left hand side and you can see the Trikona. So when the Ouroboros comes out, it goes around in a coiled manner. It forms this Trikona with the 3 points of the Trikona being the Icha Shakti, the Kriya Shakti and the Jnana Shakti. It simply means the Icha Shakti is the desire to create, the Kriya Shakti is the action, and then the jnana is shakti is the knowledge that is required to create. So from this trikona, all the deities which you see, all the deities which we pray to, all of them come out of this trikona. And not only the deities, the many levels of creation which we see, that is the physical, the astral, the causal, the many different dimensions which we understand that exist in this universe. And this universe is not just one universe, it is actually multiverse. So the many different universes that are existing all come from this trikona. So anything that exists as part of this universe or the part of the system of universes that are there, they all come from the trikona. And as long as the snake is holding its tail in its mouth, the creation stays. So this is the meaning of Ouroboros, the very starting point of creation. So if you look at the shape of the trikona, it looks something like the water chestnut. It is more clear here in this image where you can see the trikona, the Ouroboros here within the trikona, and it looks something like the water chestnut. If you look at the water chestnut very closely, you will see that it has 3 points. There are 3 points of trikona, 3 and kona, that is 3 corners. So it has 3 corners, and then you can see center, it has a circular shape in the center. So this is how the trikona looks like, and the entire creation emanates from this particular trikona. So the dream which I had was that the Kundalini telling me that I too have emanated from her and I'm part of the creation. This dream had a very deep impact on me because it took me back to my origin. It took me back to the point where the universe was telling me as to how I was created. So these mystical symbols, they hold a lot of deep meaning, significance. They hold vibration which allows you to ascend much higher in your spiritual journey. And they actually bring you direct information. They get direct information about you and about your process and about the universe in general. Now I'll talk about how the gunas, they affect us at a universal level. As you all are aware, our dimension is the third dimension. I was earlier talking about the many different dimensions that emanate from creation. So we are part of the third dimension. And what does third dimension mean? It simply means that we have three particular dimensions in this universe, in our bodies, and the matter which you see around in the physical plane here, the earthly existence or the physical universe has three dimensions. So what are these dimensions? Here, if you look at a point, the point has no dimension. But when you draw a line, the line has is one the first dimension. When you draw two lines, it becomes the second dimension. That is, now you have the length and you have the breadth. So there are two dimensions, length and breadth. But then if you look at this, this has no depth. This is flat. So this is second dimension. Imagine if I put more papers on this, many more papers on this. So when I keep on adding papers to this, then what happens is it is a book where you can see a lot of papers in this book, right? So the many second dimensional objects here, which are put one on top of other. And then now what do we have? We have the third dimension where you can see there's a length, breadth, and then you even have the depth. So typically all objects which you see on the earthly plane or which are there in our universe, they all are third dimensional objects. Even our bodies are third dimensional object. The trees that you see, the birds, the animals, the planets, the stars, they all are third dimensional in nature. So the physical existence, if you take a telescope and you look at the galaxies which are very far away from us, they all are third dimensional objects and we belong to the third dimensional universe or the third dimensional plane. I earlier spoke about how from the Trikona, the basic building blocks for the creation of different planes of existence emanate. It is the Prakriti. It creates, it is a source of all these building blocks. And apart from Prakriti, the three gunas also emanate. The three gunas are the Sattva guna, the Rajo guna, and the Tamo guna. These three gunas also emanate from the Trikona, while Kundalini is uncoiling itself, along with the Matrikas and the many different languages which become part of our psychological uh, plane of thought. Now, when you look at the physical dimension, if you go down to the basics of the physical dimension, the particles that create the physical dimension, at a very basic level, you will see that the very smallest particles are the electrons and the quarks. Now, when these quarks, they combine with each other in different combinations, they create protons and neutrons. So typically the building blocks for the physical plane of existence is the electrons, protons and neutrons. We all are aware of this because we studied these atomic structures at school, at our school level. Now, when the protons and neutrons, they come together with a strong attractive force, they form the nucleus of an atom. And around this central nucleus, you will see the electrons revolving and rotating around this central nucleus. And when many such atoms come together, it creates a molecule. All that you see in nature is just these particles being rearranged over and over again to form different combinations, to form different chemicals, to form different kinds of structures that you see in the third dimensional existence. So, right from the distant stars, the planets, to our own bodies, there's a lot of similarity because we all come from the same building blocks. For example, the calcium which you see in your body, that is in your bones and your teeth, is similar to the calcium that exists in some planet in a very distant galaxy. The iron in your blood is similar to the iron that is found in some distant galaxy. So we all are made from that same building blocks, the same electrons which are arranged over and over again in different combinations. So the basic elements like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, they all come from the same combinations of different combinations of these electrons and other smaller particles that exist in the universe. And apart from this, the three gunas, it is the sattva guna, the rajoguna, and the tamo guna, they also in different combinations have an influence on how these particles combine and how they work in while under the influence of these gunas. No matter how solid the physical plane of existence may appear, but when you go down to the quantum level, we will see that the building blocks, that is the electrons, are not even particles. They're more like a field of fluid like objects, and they are constantly moving around, and there is no possibility of tracking an electron, or we cannot say that an electron is there in this position or it is present in some other position. So the it at a very quantum level, the so-called solid world looks more like a field of fluid like existence which is moving around in harmony. These fields, they work together in harmony like they're dancing around to a tune. But at the higher level, these very fields of electrons appear like solid universe. So this is how wonderful or how great this creation is. At one level, it appears like it's just a field of consciousness, but at a higher level, it feels very gross, it feels very real, it feels very solid in nature. At the universal level, we can describe these gunas as follows. Sattva guna can represent light, it represents existence, it represents essence, luminosity, expansion, then a strong attraction. This is what Sattva guna means. And Rajoguna means activity, that source which generates activity. It's something that excites, it causes mobility, it has action. And tamas can be defined as something which is heavy, which is enveloping, which is obstructive in nature, which is gross, stable, destruction, then darkness, inaction, contraction. So typically this is the tamas, which at the is active at the universal level. At the universal level, we have three force fields. That is electromagnetic field, the strong nuclear force, the weak nuclear force, and apart from that, we have gravity. Now, Prakriti, it expresses itself in the form of three gunas. So these three gunas are clearly evident at the universal level. Now, when you look at the electromagnetic field is the interaction between electrically charged particles. And the magnetic aspect of it, that is the attractive or the attraction part of it, is sattva in nature. Now, when you take a photon, you will see that the photon has light, it's a light particle, and then it is moving, but it has no weight. So, photon, the light part of the photon is the sattva nature. The moving part or the action part is the rajas nature, and the fact that it has no weight, it simply means that it has no tamas or no tamo guna in it. So photon is sattva and rajo guna in nature. Now next comes the weak nuclear force. Weak nuclear force is responsible for radioactive decay of subatomic particles in a nuclear fission, or the field strength here is typically several orders less in magnitude. Because of this, this is basically tamas in nature with little of sattva. And when look at strong interaction, the strong interaction of is responsible for keeping the elementary particles together in the atom. So when you see that the protons and neutrons in an atom are strongly combined as a nucleus, it is because of the strong interaction or the strong nuclear force that is present. Apart from that, the strong nuclear force even retains the structure of the atoms, the structure of the molecules, and even structure of massive particles. And this strong attraction is because of the sattva guna that is present in this kind of force. Now, apart from this comes gravity. Gravity is responsible for the complexity of the universe. By gravity, it creates spheres of hydrogen, it ignites them under pressure to form stars, and then it groups objects into galaxies. Without gravity, the universe would be an uncomplicated one, existing without thermal energy. It composed of only equally spaced particles. So, gravity is typically sattva guna predominantly with a little of tamoguna. We have seen how these gunas play at the universal level. But at an individual level, these gunas affect the way we think and our behaviors also. So here the meaning of sattva, rajas and tamoguna is different from how I've described it at the universal levels. At a personal level, sattva guna represents goodness, it represents truth, contentment, peace, joy, the the good qualities that are there in a person which help that person to progress spiritually. Rajas is all about activity, it is all about attachment, greed, the need to do, passion, the courage to do things. So, Rajas is all about activity or action that happens in life, which binds us to life. And tamas simply means darkness, it means arrogance, it means that this person is living in nescience or the person has no knowledge and he is living in a place of darkness. Bodies too, they are made of Prakriti and the three gunas. Till now, we've seen how the gunas manifest at the universal level, at the psychological level, and how they even have an effect on the kind of awakening we have. But here we will see that our body, mind is made out of Prakriti and the three gunas. Here, first, you see the Purusha. Purusha is the spirit, the conscious energy that governs life and reality. That is which does not change. It has no change. It is soul consciousness. It is the truth. Whereas Prakriti is when Prakriti is unmanifest, the three gunas, that is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, are in balance. But once Prakriti starts manifesting, the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamo gunas also they start changing, and in various combinations they create various kinds of results. Our intellect, our ego, they all are products of the Prakriti and the three gunas that have mixed in various combinations. Apart from that, our mind, the five sensory organs, that is the eye, ear, nose, skin, tongue, which are called the Jnanendriyas, which we use, along with the Karmendriyas, that is the uh, organs of action, that is the hand, feet, speech, organ of elimination and procreation. We use these five sensory organs and five organs of action, and we experience the external world through this body, and we make sense of the external world through the processes that happen in our mind. And we identify with this body because of our ahankara. And we use our discretion or intellect. All these things are product of Prakriti and the Trigunas, which are mixed in different combinations. The external world is made of the five elements, that is space, air, fire, water, and earth. Even our bodies are made of these five elements. And we experience the external world through sound, touch, seeing forms, tasting, and smell. This body mind complex that we have is nothing but the product of Prakriti and the three gunas. And while using this Prakriti and three gunas, we are trying to ascend or move up in the spiritual ladder so that we can reach the level of soul consciousness. Prakriti and three gunas are subject to change, whereas Purusha is eternal. Now, our mind is Satwik in nature because it craves for peace, it likes balance. Our organs are Rajas in nature because they are activity oriented. The physical body is Tamasic in nature because the physical body can go to sleep and it can die. Therefore, it is Tamasic in nature. Now, I'll talk about the Kundalini process and how it is related to our conscious and subconscious mind. A normal person only uses about 3 to 4% of his brain. The remaining part of his brain is inaccessible. So let's call this part of the brain as subconscious mind. Because this part is not accessible, this person does not know what lies in that area of the brain. For example, if you look at the picture here, you will see an iceberg floating in the sea. When you look at the iceberg, you see a small portion that is visible above the waves. And a normal person might think that the iceberg, total size of the iceberg is only limited to the amount of the iceberg he sees above the water level. He is not aware of that huge piece of iceberg that lies beneath the surface of water. So nearly 90% of the iceberg lies beneath the surface of the water. In the same way, a normal person, he only uses 3 to 4% of his conscious brain and he thinks within the limit of that particular framework. He does not know that so much of material lies within his own subconscious mind. So, what does he carry in his subconscious mind? The subconscious mind is like a recorder. It records all your uh, different emotions, all your different experiences through many different lifetimes. Your lessons, your potential, the good things about you, your shadow side, everything lies in the subconscious mind. And sometimes this subconscious mind, it opens up when we are in a state of dream. So you can peep a little into subconscious mind if we understand our dreams properly. And when somebody in the spiritual path, they experience more dream time because the subconscious mind is opening up. And because the subconscious mind is opening up, dream interpretation becomes very important here. And more we try to understand the dreams, the better we get at understanding the material that is there within the subconscious mind. For example, say somebody is sweeping the floor. Instead of picking the dirt and throwing it out, disposing it properly, the person just pushes the dust under the carpet. And he does this on a daily basis. The house looks neat from outside, but all the dust is there under the carpet. In the same way, all the experiences, all the pain, all the trauma, all the anger that we have built up over many lifetimes, it is all pushed under the carpet, which is the subconscious mind, and it stays there. And when we take on the next lifetime, and we have many lifetimes. So we carry this material from one lifetime to another lifetime, and this keeps on building up. So what happens is, in a normal person is, the subconscious mind is inaccessible. For that reason, they just go about life being unaware of what actually lies beneath in the subconscious mind. But when somebody is in the spiritual path, we do japas, we do a lot of sadhanas and practices like meditations, mantra chanting. We do all these things so that we can open up the subconscious mind. And once the subconscious mind opens up, like in a spiritual awakening or in a Kundalini awakening, especially, it just opens up. When the subconscious mind opens up, all that pent up emotions that were there in the subconscious mind, they get released immediately. And this phase is called the purging phase, and this can take many years to maybe a lifetime or more. And this is a very difficult phase in the spiritual awakening process. So all the pent up pain or trauma that the person has experienced over many lifetimes gets released, and the person grieves. He goes into depression, he cries for many years. It depends on how much material that person is carrying within his system. Then all those desires which are repressed and kept within his system immediately come out, they surface. So the person can experience a range of desires, right from uh, repressed sexual desires to desires of addictions, or even some have desires for food, some need or they have addiction for power. So there are many kinds of desires which the person may be holding within his system. All those come out. And then apart from that, the anger, they experience a lot of anger, and this anger is without any basis. The person feels very angry, but then you search for an excuse for your anger because you're not sure why you're angry. And this is the repressed anger that is there within your system over many lifetimes. A lot of pain is there that gets released, and a lot of fears. Not just your own fears, even your ancestral fears are getting released. So, what happens here is, a lot of the shadow side which we thought or which we were not aware of within our system is not coming out into light. When it is coming out into light, we are surprised at how much material we are carrying within our system. And this repressed uh, pain or trauma or anger or fears or desires, this material is stored in various parts of your chakras. The lower three chakras actually carry a lot of material which needs to be cleared away, especially the Muladhara chakra carries lot of stuff, and this chakra is the most difficult to clear. And so for a person, maybe the lower three chakras, cleaning the lower three chakras itself can take a lifetime or more. So a lot of stuff is there, or a lot of material is there in the subconscious mind which needs to be cleared. A normal person is not aware of all this that happens within his subconscious mind. He is just normally pushing away all the dirt under the carpet. But once somebody has a Kundalini awakening, the carpet, the dust which is there beneath the carpet comes out. And because the dirt comes out, it becomes messy. And now this dirt has to be cleaned out of your home, out of your system, and it has to be disposed away properly. And the reason why we experience this pain or this trauma or this desires is because our nadis, that is the channels, energetic channels or the pathways in our body, are getting clean. And while they're getting clean, they're releasing away a lot of the material that is stored within them. And while this material is getting released from our system, we are experiencing the same emotion, the same pain, the same trauma, the same desire. We experience it totally and we release it from our system. So, if somebody has a sexual desire which they cannot control, they should try not to release the desire sexually. Rather, they should stay with the desire and allow the system to clear it. In the same way, when you experience a lot of anger or pain or trauma, it is stay with the emotion. Stay with the emotion because your body is cleaning the emotion away from your system. Now, all this pain, trauma, anger, the belief systems which we carry, which have been there within our system for many lifetimes, they are part of the Prakriti and the three gunas. And the Kundalini has awakened. So, all that which is false, which changes, it gets cleared away from your system. It gets cleared away from your system so that you can reach your soul consciousness. So, this cleaning phase is a very difficult phase. And while you're cleaning away the material from your chakras, you're experiencing the same fear, the same emotion, the same anger, and the releasing it. Even the shadow side that is there within our system gets released. We think of ourselves as very good people, especially if you think you're a very nice person. It is at this phase where we realize there are a lot of tendencies within us, and we have the same ability which a criminal has, where maybe a criminal lacks the discretion. He may go and kill a person. You may experience the same anger, the same emotion, but then there's a discretion there which does not allow you to do wrong things, but you still carry that capability within your system. So all that comes to the surface. We realize that we are no different from the other people that are there around us. Only difference between them and us is we are using our intellect, our discretion. Because of that, we are not subject to our emotions like an immature person or a new soul is subject to their emotions, basic animal instincts, and they do not use their discretion. So we can somehow understand the psychology of a person who does not have this level of discretion. Earlier we would think of this person as a bad person, or we would judge this person. But now we have the ability to empathize with this person. Though we condemn their actions, we still understand why they're doing it. This process even makes us aware of the dark side of human nature and a lot of potential that is there hidden within us. Maybe we were artists in our past life. Maybe we've learned certain skills in our past life. So even all those come out. We understand ourselves better. Now, because the subconscious mind has opened up, we have a total awareness of what lies within us. That zones within our mind which were closed until now have opened up. They've opened up, and now we have a total understanding of your life. And once all these zones open up, we even start recalling our past lives, and we understand why we behave in a certain way in this particular life because of the fears or the pain we have experienced in our past life. For example, in my own case, I had the severe neck pain during my Kundalini Awakening process for 15 years. It was very painful. I could not even turn my head sideways, and uh, I had to undergo a lot of physiotherapy, but the pain would never subside. It is only when I had a Kundalini awakening, and while recalling my past lives, I recalled my past life where I was stuck in my mother's womb and I was trying to come out. There was a complication during my birth. I was trying to come out. I was hitting my head against the exit, but I was stuck in my mother's womb for over 10 days and I could not come out. And this, I had to experience a lot of pain in my neck while that was happening with me. And the memory of that pain was still there in my neck. I was given birth to, but I died immediately. So in my next birth, that is in this birth, I experienced that pain uh, while I was in my Kundalini awakening. The same pain in my neck where I was trying to hit and come out of my mother's womb. I experienced that pain for 15 years. My system was purging away that memory, that painful memory from my system. While I was purging that memory from my system, I was experiencing that pain. And miraculously, once I went through that phase, the phase was over, my neck pain vanished. It's over 10 years now. I don't have the neck pain. So while the system is purging, you can experience a lot of Kundalini symptoms. Many diseases that are there, they come out because of the purging that is happening within your system. And then even the vaccinations which you have taken as a child, even they get purged out. So everything that is there, which does not need to be there in your system, is pushed out. Now, when somebody has a Satwik Kundalini awakening, they can have repressed pain and trauma, but these people generally have little to no desires. For that reason, they don't go into addictions, and because they have high pain threshold, they are not subject to addictions, and they overcome their fears. And because they have the blessings of the higher uh, entities, they sort of complete the process successfully. But with somebody who has a Rajasic awakening, they have a lot of repressed desires, a lot of repressed anger. All that comes out suddenly. And for these people, it is very difficult for them to manage the pain or to manage those desires that are coming up. And many of them, they resort to drugs and other ways or means to suppress the desires or to suppress the anger or the pain or the trauma. Now, these drugs or these kinds of painkillers, they have a negative effect on the Kundalini process. They should not be taken. It is always advisable with somebody, if somebody is having a Rajasic or Tamasic awakening, to have a guru, a physical guru, who can help them tide these very difficult phases in the Kundalini process. The purging phase is necessary. If we do not undergo the purging phase, then all that material within us, which is not our true self, all that material within us, which is just the Prakriti and the Trigunas, they keep us in the state of ego, and we can never reach this level of soul consciousness. For that reason, the system has to be cleared out. Now, once the system is cleared out, you recall your past lives, the karmic baggage, anything left is burnt out by Kundalini. And this can be seen in a third eye as, nigrido flowing out from your system, from various chakras. And once the karma is burnt out, what is left is just the vasanas and samskaras, that is mental impressions and certain tendencies. It takes few more years to get rid of the vasanas and samskaras. And once this happens, the Sahasrara chakra opens. We have to understand that everything that happens in our life and everything that happens in the external world is because of the combination of Prakriti and the three gunas in various ratios. So, any event that happens in your life, you become the doer. If you identify with doing an act, then the karma of doing that act gets attached to you. And when you are the sufferer or the enjoyer of an act, then you get identified as the sufferer and the enjoyer, and then you take on the karma that is related to the act. As long as you understand that whatever happens in your life and whatever happens in the external world is just the act of Prakriti and the three gunas, and you do not identify with the happening or the events that are happening in your life or in the external world. Rather, you maintain a stance of being a witness, detached witness from what is happening around you. Then you develop the inner discretion. where you will be able to identify the truth from the false, and you move more towards soul consciousness, because now the karma that generally binds a person to an act, you are not getting involved into it. You are just looking at an act or an event as it is unfolding in front of you, without thinking of yourself as a doer of an act or as the enjoyer or the sufferer of an act. Because of that kind of thinking, the karma that is attached with the act does not bind you. So, as long as you are in a witness stance and you just live spontaneously, you start living life spontaneously without identifying yourself with a particular event, then what happens is the karma that is associated with that event does not bind you. And because of that, you come out of the karmic bondage. And because you're out of the karmic bondage, you can see or you can study and understand the external event, and you see more truth in the external event, because now your ego does not get into the way. It does not try to distort. Your ego is no longer distorting the external events to fit in with the motives or with its desires or with its inner emotional state. So, because of this, you become free. You become free from suffering. You become free from your mind. In today's video, I spoke about the mystical symbol Ouroboros, and then went on to explain the Prakriti and Trigunas and how they affect us at the universal level, at a psychological level, and while we are undergoing a Kundalini awakening, how do they affect us? And how the external events are just a manifestation of Prakriti and the Trigunas. And when you understand this, you know you are no longer bound by karmic baggage. Rather, you are released from the suffering of the mind. Thank you.